We
That's
do. We
really,
live in the forest, about an hour south of Yosemite National Park. So this is the community in which I was raised. I myself was born in Yosemite National Park, as well as my brother, in the 70s. And I've lived in this community my whole life outside of college. So very grateful that my husband and I could live here in the forest to raise our children. So great spot. It's our little sanctuary.
yeah, it's very nice.
phenomenal.
I love the park, even though I have yet to visit. One of these days, I was in my discussion the other day with Will. I was saying that there was a time where I was planning a hike on the John Muir Trail, but I never got to it. So,
Oh, definitely recommend. My husband David and I hiked the John Muir Trail for our honeymoon, summer of '96.
uh-huh,
We did it in two sections, summer of '96, summer of '97.
right.
Yes, it's a fantastic trail. Highly recommend it. So
Yeah,
put
I've
it on
seen
your
lots of
list.
videos. Um, and
Yeah.
I actually ended up doing there's a trail that runs from Canada down the North Shore of Lake Superior to Duluth called the Superior Hiking Trail, and I did that one or a large segment of it instead. And But yeah, it's still something that plays in the back of my mind. I got all the gear, for through hiking, so it's not like, I need the stuff. It's all there, and I use it for other hikes and stuff like that on occasion, but nothing quite that length usually. So yeah.
How long was it, Chuck, in terms of days of hiking?
Um, the other was I only spent, what was it, 8 days on that particular hike. It was supposed to be longer, but I was having knee issues. Actually, I injured my knee 3 weeks before I started the hike, and so it was pretty good. It was getting there by the time I decided to do it. But as Jamie will tell you, when you're on the trail, especially if it's a single track trail that's challenging, knees and things like that don't typically heal in that situation. So it actually went the other direction. So it
Yeah,
ended the hike for
it's
me.
a good sign. It's time to think about going back.
Yeah. So
But I never been in Yosemite either, and I've been waiting for an opportunity to be and have a good excuse to visit a friend, and they will
Yeah,
tell
you
me
have
which way
one.
to go, and
right, yes.
Everyone should come
and
visit.
guess what? Oh my God,
We don't
new
want to overwhelm
opportunities.
anybody though.
We'll
Anyway, here
have
we
to
are.
plan it. We'll have to
Yeah.
Right.
plan that
Yes,
visit.
yes.
Yes.
Well, if it's in the future, it will show up in a natural way. I'm just joking at the moment. Anyway, so we're back here, and I think Mr. Ray is refuel, and I can see his energies up and running. So, Ray, please step forward. I think you will tell us a little more about what's going to happen here, and surely move right into it, huh? Now, it would help you if you unmute yourself.
No, they want us to practice on the telepathy and the lip reading,
Oh,
and you
okay.
just ruined the entire lesson. So thank you all for
There you
coming.
go. Okay, okay.
All right.
And
They'll
so
slip
so
into
be
an
it.
alternative method, as any good presenter is. They are ready with a backup plan in case they have little anomalies like this. So I'm just going to let them come in. And although I know what they talk about, I'm sure you guys will too soon.
Did you say Pleiadians here?
Pleiadians, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
And we'll see where that goes. And we welcome you all for this co-creation in this fine slice of time which you have created and bestowed upon all of us. Today, with this particular group, we are not going to teach you anything new or even attempt to, but merely to describe something that you already know in a slightly different term. And this will make more sense as your planet and humanity progress towards the open contact and scenarios and lifestyles which will exist after that. That is a concept of all consciousness being equal. As humans, you have a tendency, if you are not already advanced spiritually, to value some forms of consciousness over others. Sometimes parents don't mind if their little children step on ants, or if they do not pick up their litter, which may become a hazard to wildlife, or view trees as something as replaceable, or even other humans as somehow being less desirable than other humans. When in fact, from a higher realm consciousness viewpoint, a speck of dirt, a book, a wisp of breeze, a blue whale, or a kind word are all consciousness. They are all energetic representations of splinterings of source energy. And none of them, no matter what the expression, is more valuable than another. Maybe more experienced in human linear terms, maybe more advanced in the amount of consciousness which it may contain, but they are yet equal. And once humanity has arisen, and once humanity entertains the ideas that they can communicate with critters who they once thought may be beneath them, then a new set of consciousness, a new energy will form and expand amongst you. Now, there are lots of probabilities, as everyone in this group is aware, and the ones which you attract are one of the reasons why we are here. For it is a opportunity for us to experience your role in the coming ascension and open contact, personal and otherwise. And having that mindset that all consciousness is equal and actively supporting that with your actions and your thoughts and hopefully your feelings will bring upon that contact, that open contact scenario even faster. So by each of you focusing on contact, all being important equally, no matter what, then it will help to generate that vibration that will ripple out, and it will affect others because all energies which interact affect each other. But in doing so, you are helping to make it easier for others to have that thought, that energy worm its way into their consciousness, maybe as a what if. And that is helpful for all of those little openings about something which may be beyond their expectations or beyond their known reality, which is a possibility, is a way for energy to build upon itself. Now, we could provide other examples of this, but we believe that with this particular group that our points have been made, and we appreciate all of you being open and receptive to this idea, and know in your hearts that once you individually and collectively all view consciousness as equal, not just on your planet or in species, but each species, whether earthbound or not, the beings which are coming are equals. They are all consciousness, which is no better, no worse, just a different expression of all that is. And by denying its equal status as a valuable part of all that is, then you demean it and yourself. For you are not allowing its true expression. You are not accepting its energy as a divine conscious being. And we know you know where that goes. So keep vibing up. Thank you for allowing us to spend this little tidbit of your time in your presence, even though it is an energetic interaction. We appreciate you being here physically so that we may connect with you. And we are willing to entertain questions if they come among you.
So I guess I'll break the ice with the questions, and anybody that would like to follow, just do the normal, which is to say you have a question. So a couple of things about your message here today, my dear ones. The open contact that we're expecting is tremendously assisted by our acceptance of all possible forms of consciousness. Would you comment on that?
Your acceptance in a non-judgmental fashion.
In a non-judgmental fashion, yeah.
That is an important aspect of that. It is the allowance, the free flow of energy unhindered by every participant in such an encounter. And when you have those things which your ego may close off, or you have those judgments in your mind, then you literally prevent that person from being fully expressive of themselves, their authentic self in your presence. Even if they are, in their mind, their most authentic self, that energy resonance has an effect. And it is like perhaps we will say, a stone in a cup that prevents it from holding all that it could. So when you accept all of that consciousness and you see it as an equal and you treat it as an equal, because it is okay to say, cup, you are very good to me. Is there things that you can do or that I need to do for you to make your life better? Like you do to your plants, or perhaps your animals, or those you care for. Then that is the equality of which we speak, that you treat it on the terms like you do all other consciousness, respect and honored and loved. Now,
So
was
I,
it?
I also take it that as one is entering into that consciousness that is non-judgmental, one does not need to preach it. You just need to be it. And you're making it completely available for others. Perhaps some will observe you, perhaps not, but it's in the feel.
That is true. And there are misconceptions and miscommunications with the spoken word. But your example, when people see you talking with things which they consider inanimate, and they judge you to be a sane individual and an open-hearted individual, it will help them to say, hey, what are you doing? And you explain, everything is conscious, and I am merely connecting with an equal. then they may look at you funny, but the truth in that statement will hit them. It will connect with them. It will reside within them. And whether it takes hold or not depends on other factors. But yes, you do not have to say that, but the example is always the best because you are energetically communicating yourself. You are emanating yourself at all times. And that you that emanates with that imbues the object of your focus with additional energies. And that positive appreciation and loving interaction as an equal will help raise the vibration of the consciousness which you are addressing. And others may notice that, and it may jog something in them. Or it may have some other effect, but that energy will ripple out and have an effect, even if nothing is vocalized, as you say.
Thank you. Willow, please.
This may be a little bit off topic, but I was wondering how open contact is going to impact and enhance the experience of dreaming among individuals.
Well, it will not affect things from the non-human side hardly at all. But from the human side, as human beings raise their vibration and understand that they have another life they have neglected in their dream time. There are a good many humans on your planet who believe that sleep is more of a fantasy fallacy than an actual part, a continuation of their consciousness in another free-form realm. But once open contact occurs, the word will get out that, hey, you can connect with aliens in your sleep. They can come to you and it's not nearly as scary. And as you know, the more that people open up, the more other people with same thoughts will have the courage to come forward with their beliefs, their stories, to ask questions. So once it starts, it will be an avalanche of changes, not only in the waking world, but in the dreamscape as well. And we do appreciate your question, but from our point of view, it matters not. But from others, it will be part of the coming changes on your planet. And you will find that there will be more groups of humans who participate in their own collective dreams as well. For once that consciousness arises, and the ascension of humanity is closer and closer, then the urge to connect with others in new ways will become even stronger. And that will be an easy exploration area, for it is already within you. It is just unrealized to a large extent.
Thank you. That's very true and very exciting to look forward to.
We could have just said sleep on it.
So, in the open contact, which is not just one event, I'm sure it opens a window. Will there be the opportunity of people that already have been channeling specific beings that are coming down on that open contact experience
Well,
to express themselves in a manner in which you can establish the direct correspondence between who was channeling and this being, in a manner that is visible to those that are incredulous about the whole thing. They don't believe in it.
The short answer is yes. But understand that each of you has a different perspective. And understand that contact has been happening for a long, long time. It is the awareness which has been lagging behind, we will say. For there have never been days where you have not had alien presences on your planet. It has never happened. And it will never happen. This is not only a very special place in the realms of creation, but it is a conglomeration of thoughts of many individual species of consciousness who all wish to have not really a foothold, but an energetic presence in the consciousness which manifests. And many of you may be aware that there are representations of felines and reptiles and other associated beings in the hominid species which roam galactic spaces, we will say. Does that suffice?
That suffice. Is there any other questions or comments that any of you would like to make?
We can add that the entities and energies which will be coming in and facilitating a larger contact event, we will say, are already aware that all consciousness is equal. Now, even on your planet, it is never going to be every consciousness on your planet believes that they are equal. For indeed, as all of you are uniquely aware on a conscious or an unconscious level, cats will never believe that other beings are their equal.
I'll accept that for sure.
We are not saying they are correct. We are merely saying that they will not believe it, and their beliefs indicate their reality.
Of course. Thank you.
We will allow a transition, if we may.
Of course.
We wanted to come and play. We wanted to come and play. Teachers said it was okay. So we went ahead and we asked if the Pleiadians would help us slide in, and they let us come in, and we are happy, and we are dancing on our end, and we are happy, happy, happy to be in your midst again. And we know the channel made up a song for us. He's not good with music, but he can do some lyrics and poems, and we will have to work with him to get it. And we haven't done a song for him, but we will sing his song, and he will teach it to us, and we will manufacture our own tunes since he does not have them. And or we will get them from another source. It will flow. It will flow. And we will be happy to share because we like to share. That is us. And maybe we can have a recording session. And it wouldn't help to have telepathy for that. But not with your equipment. But It may happen. It may happen. We have to learn the songs first, though. It was fun. Today we were experimenting. We could not explain it. It was with tubes of energies, and there's nothing to compare it to that we can explain. But that's okay. It's just something that we have, and you will have to learn it on your own because it is so different than your reality. On higher levels, you probably already know. So ask yourself what we were learning. Just say, you know, it was tubes, energetic tubes. Oh, so many purposes, so many different types of energies. We get to help teach humans about energies because you know of some, but lots of species have their own energies too, not just frequencies, but some of them have other specializations. And we know we say a great deal about them because we know pretty much about all the ones that are going to be involved in open contact in the first couple of waves, because that's part of our education, and they are involved with us now. They don't have to wait like humans have to wait because they are already vibrationally compatible. And we need you to come up, bring your vibration up, come up and visit us so we can come down and visit you. And we tend to get excited.
Heidi, please.
Hello, hybrid children. I wanted to ask, I heard you say that you were playing around with tubes of energy, and I wanted to ask you a little bit about how that was. I wanted to ask, what size were these tubes? Could you fit inside them, or where were they? How was the energy moving in the tubes?
These tubes do not connect with physical realities. It would be like you trying to describe what all of the doors on your planet were for and where different ones lead. Sometimes you can do that and they all lead to different places, the other side. But these are not really tubes in the way humans think of tubes. These are more energetic pathways that are conscious, and they specialize in allowing certain energetic transmissions or beings or mergings or confluences, lots of connections, and it's none of it is physical. It's when we get to your planet, maybe we'll have a better handle on it. But right now, there's just not enough similarities to explain it to you.
Well,
Because
that's okay. It's something that we can look forward to
the
understanding
connections are
later.
too varied. Like it would be maybe like you get in your car and you go on a highway, and then you find that you're in the middle of the ocean because you had to pick up some fresh fish. And then you decided to scoop up some sand from one of the moons on Jupiter. And then you ended up in a different place entirely without a physical body. And you say, oh, well, that was fun. And somebody says, well, can you tell me how you did that in human terms? And you say, Maybe in the dream time, but you wouldn't understand. Because you can't understand what I just explained. It's just a bunch of words all thrown together, and they seem to fit in some logical, chronological order of fantasy. But we tried.
Well, it sounds very much like what does happen in a dream.
Well, we're not dreaming.
Maybe that would be the closest way to begin to understand.
Well, we could be dreaming, and we can talk to you in our dreams because our dreams are just awake state. It's just a different wake state, more of a regenerative state. And it allows for other contact with, we're just going to say other contact.
Thank you.
We like these special excursions because we don't always get to connect with humans. And the Pleiadians are so nice. They're so nice. We told the channel earlier, we want to come through. We want to come through tonight. And he didn't say no. We told him teachers said it was okay. So he knew we were coming. He knew we were coming. But and he kind of hinted, didn't he? Didn't he? He said, never know who's going to show up. Well, now you know. And aren't you pleased? I know we're pleased. It's always a treat. It's like a special treat for us. Like when maybe you guys would get to have cake and ice cream for no reason.
Ice cream. I like ice cream too.
I don't know why we use that as examples because we don't like cake and ice cream. But it's humans seem to think they are very emotional. They have very strong ties to their desserts. Oh my gosh. Even more so some than their children. It's amazing. It's amazing how humans think of food. Oh my gosh. And there's so many different varieties, and yet they don't even think about what it does to their bodies. They let their taste buds rule. It's like taste buds are king. If this tastes so good, I'm going to eat all of it and more of it and nothing else but this because my taste buds said so. That is just silly. Oh my gosh, humans are complex. I'm glad we don't do that. If we need sustenance, we know where to find it and we know what is good for us. Because if it flows with our needs, then it is for us. We do not need to force things, and we do not need to consider what its value is to us, to our biology, we will say, for we just know. But humans have different patterns of behavior. Oh, hey, look at this. Oh, look, there's no nutrition. Let's put it in our mouth and feed it to our children. Oh, because, oh, it has snappy wrappers. And look, a little plastic thing we can throw away later after the kids are done delighting in it. That is a strange way to operate a planet. It is a strange, strange way. But the toys are fun to play with, even if it's not so perfectly nutritious, we will say. But it's your beliefs. If you believe it's good for you, then it can be better. That works on our planets too. I mean, on our ships and our societies too. But it flows more naturally. We don't have all these side roads with dead ends, we will say.
Thank you for reminding us how to have joy. And even when we make bad choices, we go into the joyfulness side of it.
The choices aren't bad. It's just not optimal. And when it has, when it lowers your vibration, then in our experience, it needs more attention. Because if it lowers your vibration, it keeps you from being your best. And who doesn't want to be their best? Because then you naturally flow with everybody else. It all just fits and flows, and everybody's happy, and everything just goes according to plans without plans. And it is just a delightful thing. It's like everybody's singing and humming the same song. And even though all of the words are different, they all still rhyme in where they need to. But
Thank you for reminding us of that.
and the channel is wearing out.
Yes.
Our excitement added to that. That's okay. We know he is smiling on the inside, even if his outside is showing signs of weariness. He can tuck himself in whenever it's time. But we will semi-reluctantly go. And
Will
we
the
will sing
Pleiadians?
songs of the wonderful humans. We may hum them. It's a little bit subdued energy-wise to be creating lyrics. But thank you.
Thank you. How are you doing, Ray? You guys happy? Joyfully happy.
They tried to leave quietly. They're so considerate.
Ray, there was another question that was coming for the Pleiadians,
Oh,
and maybe
they ducked out, huh?
yeah, no, it was all what it was supposed to be. The hybrid children.
Christina, Anna, it's all important.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
What was the question?
well, let Christiana come forth and ask the question if she would like to. If she would like to.
Well, they mentioned the synchronicities are interesting tonight, but they mentioned reptiles and felines, no?
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, choices are funny throughout a lifetime. I ended up having a cat on one arm as a tattoo and a snake on the other one. And this has happened years ago, but after I found out about all this bigger existence, then I thought, okay, is there some balance that is symbolically happening with this, maybe?
Of course. I think we can all answer that. Because anytime you're emotionally drawn to have an experience like a tattoo, because people don't get tattoos, they're like, hey, I think that might look nice. I think I'll go ahead and just get it for shits and grins. No, I mean,
No.
as anybody who has ever been around somebody and once you get one, you're like, it has energy. It's calling me. It wants friends. I must serve it. I must give it more. I have more skin. Look, artwork. It needs to be filled in. Look at my empty palette or canvas. So.
You're evoking somebody from my past, Bruce. Bruce is, if you look at it on the internet, you're going to find him readily in photos because he basically tattooed his entire body. He was kind of bald too, so, everywhere. And I knew him as he was going through that process, okay, every couple of weeks there was another tattoo.
Yeah. But yeah,
And I
Christina,
suspect that he had some of that you just said, you know.
yeah, I would ask an entity about any significance about those.
Sure.
I mean, the Pleiadians aren't really good about tapping into physical lives, so to speak. They're really pretty much primarily focused on the ascension and getting those points of those perceptions from open contact and making sure humanity gets vibrating higher so that can happen faster.
But
So,
you know, Ray, you gave a very good take on tattoos in general, okay? And something to be really felt by people that think about these things a little bit. They're alive. They are a portal. You know, they bring certain energies, and those could be very good at some point, and at later point, not exactly the right ones. So those are things to keep in mind.
yep. And Heidi, I had the same questions you did about the tubes because they couldn't even show them to me. They showed me a couple of tubes, and they were, even if I say that they look like they were spinning, that's not what they were doing. And they aren't, I can't even really explain it because even what they showed me doesn't translate because we don't have anything like that. I mean, can you like picture a slinky on acid that can skip dimensions?
Well, see, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking spiral,
Yeah, but
and I was thinking maybe like multiple levels of spirals. And so it would seem like a tube. But so that's why I was trying to ask, like, how is the energy moving? And then when they said going from here to there, I've had dreams like that, not specifically going to Jupiter, but in dreams, you find yourself in another place, or you find something in your hand that wasn't there a second ago, or you know what I mean? Just it's so fluid of a reality.
maybe you were tapping into part of what they were experiencing because
I don't know.
they didn't even bother explaining it to me. They said we're playing with tubes, and they weren't really playing today.
Mm.
They were studying more than playing on these tubes. So it was more cerebral and informational. And the one when they were answering your question and they were talking about in some ways there were some that used for convergence, like there were different energies that didn't really fit together well,
Mm.
but inside these particular tubes they all kind of changed in ways which would allow them all to flow as a unit until where they got to where they were going. And then I'm guessing they could return to a form or remix or whatever it was, but that was freaking weird. It's like,
That's
you have,
fascinating.
yeah, you have like, let's say you have a dozen six-sided Rubik's cubes and they all look different and they all have made a different material. And then you put them in this thing and it changes them all so they're all have all of the same colors facing the same way so they can all go. And as soon as they get there, then it's like poof, they're all back into the forms that they were. But for that amount of time, they were all like a zip file or something. They were all packaged in and they got there and then they were unzipped. That's
Conceptually, that reminds me of times when I'm I'm in these thought patterns of these two things that don't they don't fit together. I don't know how I'm going to describe this. Um, they
Seems to be
don't
a theme.
they don't fit together, and I'm frustrated because I can't, it just won't work. But then when I get into a meditative state, everything is fine. It's like it's all as it's supposed to be. And I thought, so that's the closest I can come to what you're describing from my own
Hey,
experience.
by all means, I mean, I'm certainly open if somebody else wants to take a stab at it, because obviously they didn't bother even explaining it to me, so I was left to my own devices.
Well, does anybody want to take a stab at it? Please step forward if anybody wants to.
So somebody explain this image that I got early this morning to me, will you? I can only describe it in words that don't describe it.
Maybe the energies that were coming through you at the time that you were.
That's just it, but I didn't get any read on anything about it. It was too foreign for me. That's my take, that it was too foreign for me to interpret in this physical reality form. And like they said, on another level, maybe I understood, but
we're very limited.
Yeah, it was
our ability to see that which we can't really even imagine what it is, for sure.
And the Pleiadians really perked up when you were talking about, you were thinking that seeing all of this stuff as consciousness and all of it being important, something like that, when you were talking with Chuck on that last bit. And they were like, well, seeing everything as consciousness is part kind of what we were talking about, having a planet of equal consciousness and viewing it that way.
Sure.
Because once we look at begin to consistently rewire our brains to look at everything as conscious that we can connect with, then that opens us up to connecting with other things which look even stranger to us, and things which don't have physical appearances at all that we can connect with and have relationships with. I mean, if you would have told me a year ago that I would have a sweetheart named Eliana Bella, who is a wind spirit, I would have said, yeah, that's nice. Let's go do something. But now I know. Oh, and she comes and visits me, and she's my sweetheart. And, I was wondering which wind was out there in the storms, which came in earlier, which came in to talk to me. I forgot to ask, because I'm trying now to connect with all of the different winds which come in to find out. And like all forms of consciousness, if they are honored and recognized, then they will respond. It's freaking amazing. It's that respect and intention and open-heartedness. I mean, trees aren't going to talk to anybody who they do not respect. Because unless you're at the proper vibrational level, you're never going to accept and integrate that message anyway. Now, that's my personal feeling. So take it for what it's worth. And maybe I say that because my ego likes it, because trees talk to me and it makes it feel special. I don't know. But I always want to throw that out there because my ego doesn't like it. No, I don't know that it cares. I always treat it like a separate person, so I can give it its due. Oh, help, Jamie!
Jamie, please.
It's
forward.
Yeah, unmute, and then we're a hard group to interrupt.
It's an open chat at the moment,
But thank you.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay. Yeah, I was just thinking a bit, because I practice a vegan lifestyle, and so does Willow, and so does Cedar, and David, my husband, and their father is vegetarian.
And Chuck.
And in terms of the idea of connecting with consciousness and honoring everything as consciousness, I feel like that lifestyle choice is one way in which we embody that or enact those intentions And I just wanted to get a sense of if that's an idea that many of you share as well, or if there are other ways that, or other choices that you might make in your own personal lives to amplify that connection with consciousness and other forms outside of the human form. So just a curiosity
We
for the
all
group.
we all take that in our own different ways, and I will let Luis start.
Oh, well, okay. So I am not vegan. I'm not vegetarian. I have tried that sometimes in my life, and at the time it didn't work for me. And so I take that a little bit with the stride of whatever your belief systems are going to contour you to the kind of experiences that you can have. Now, I don't hold anything against anything. You know, I respect when people come in front of me and they say, I have to have this special thing. And we're in a restaurant and we have to ask the chef or somebody to try to prepare it. Psh, I honor every bit of it. At some point in my life, I may become a vegan. I may become a vegetarian. I'm open to it, you know. But I have found that I have still my abilities to connect with things. Speaking of trees, you know, I mean, I was in this park that I've become very familiar with, and this is like 2 or 3 years ago, you know. So I'm going and having my normal hike, and all of a sudden, I swear to God, I heard it. It was a tree. And I had to go there. And where was the tree? The tree was in a little area that there used to be a Boy Scout camping area a few years back when Boy Scouts were still, you know, going strong. And obviously, the tree was feeling desolate because the kids were not around anymore, you know. Uh, and I remember connecting to that tree, and then I told the next time I hiked with a friend, and my friend is very in tune, and we went again to the tree. It was a beautiful thing. So anyway, I'm drifting from the vegan food and so forth. So pass it along to who wants to talk about this.
Well, Chuck's eating something vegan right now, so
Yeah, I know.
we'll let him come on
And
because I
and
know
and
he
Chuck
would.
has spoken about this, I think, before, and so has Chris, for sure, in this meetings that we
I,
have.
I
Well,
will weigh in with my thoughts too later.
so the way that I've come to understand it is that um, you get to do it whatever way you want to do it, basically. Um, certainly, you know, some of the, and this is not meant as comparison, this is just meant as various ways of doing it. But Aboriginal individuals who have usually very nice connections with the rest of creation eat lizards, snakes, fish, animals, whatever. Um, American Indian individuals, back when they were aware, and I've shared a story with these guys about some awareness that came to me, um, I don't know, 25 years ago or something like that, whatever it was. Um, that helped me to understand that tracking when individuals had that awareness, we'll just say in terms of time back then, was never about on the ground. They just had an awareness of where the animals were. And they certainly understood the interaction between consciousness, various forms of consciousness, when they chose to, whatever you want to say, harvest an animal, whatever. And so it really just depend on those things. I know that for me, one of the things that kind of drove my experience initially was I became increasingly aware of all the stuff that was contained in animals now, and I wasn't interested in putting any of it in there. And I went back and forth, and it's largely vegetarian now. I do dairy. I didn't do eggs for a long time until I became familiar through a friend of mine who grew up on a farm that most eggs are not fertilized. And I went, oh, well, okay, that changes my perspective a little bit. And so then I did that. But I can be in a household with people who are eating whatever they want to eat, and it's all fine. It doesn't make any difference to me. And there are individuals that I've encountered in my journey who have a great ability to connect, and they haven't changed the way that they ingest food. So, yeah.
Willow.
Well, I have a comment on this too, because everyone's perspectives on this really tie into the idea of unconditional love and unconditional acceptance of all people and all practices, all ways of being, and allowing all of those expressions to be valid and important, and to just encourage people to do what feels right for them instead of trying to control them and suggest that what they're doing is incorrect, because, we're all in our own journeys trying to find what works for us and trying to find balance. And as long as people maintain some sort of communication within themselves and know themselves, and then are true to that voice, following it, then they're going to be just fine.
And we're
One
all,
of the things that, go ahead, Ray.
I was just going to say, we're all still wondering how Willow somehow integrated 50 years of knowledge in only 22 years of life. Go ahead, Chuck.
I'm a fast learner. I don't know.
Obviously, holy shit, you started in the womb, for crying out loud.
But wait,
Well,
wait
that's
a
the whole
minute.
scoop, right? I mean,
Mhm.
we're all pretty much aware that, in those first 5, 6, 7, whatever years, young individuals are very aware of what they are. It's this place that's different that they have to learn about. So Willa just hung on to that stuff. Didn't let us much of it go. All of us, we had to relearn. That's not so much the case with individuals. For if anybody here knows an individual, like I've shared with you this experience, and I'm guessing that especially Willow and maybe others, I don't want to say especially, but I'll run into individuals, usually of course with their parents and stuff in a grocery store or whatever, and we will share an interaction. They'll be held by their parent, and that kid looks right at me, smiles, looks right into my eyes, and I go, yeah. And we're interacting, and I go, yeah, yeah. And I'll share some information with them about their exploration, what they're coming into now. And I'll do it. The parents will pay attention to some degree. And then I pull my attention away because I don't want to be the strange guy in the supermarket that was like, looking at their kid too long.
Well, you do, but only for a little bit of time.
Yeah, right. Yes. Yeah, yeah. For a little bit of time.
Well, that digressed from our vegan question, but I myself never bothered to not eat anything until I was told by Ra in one of these channeling sessions that, you would be a much better channeler and you could bring all these other entities in, but you have all these toxins from all of the crap you've put in your body for 60 years, and your kidneys and your liver are not going to allow you to vibrate high enough. So you need to do a detox. So I went online right then and there and got my detox. And then that was in February. And since then, I've learned a lot about my diet, like how long it takes for food to get through my system so I'm not backing it up and things of that nature. And I have changed somewhat. I do not eat processed dairy. I get my cheese that's all been, aged naturally, and most of it without rennet, which I know has a little, whether you know it or not, but it helps in curing the cheese in some ways, but it still comes from animals. And most of my meal is now organic fruit. Now, I still haven't had any beef, and I may end up with some pasteurized dairy and some of the stuff that I buy, because if I get, oh, look, it says it's organic spinach in this ravioli, but it doesn't say that the cheese is not cultured or pasteurized. So I'm guessing it's pasteurized, but hey, if it's organic spinach, I'm still going to get it anyway. I don't care. But anyway, so that's how my diet has changed. And Ra told us to quit drinking chlorinated water because it screws up all of your systems in your body, especially your mental abilities. So I've switched to distilled water since then. And but yeah, I still eat pork from now and then, and my dog eats chicken, smoked chicken twice a day. And we know that all animals were, even those that are made for food. I'm coming to you, Willa. Hold on. And then but one of the main things that I learned from Ryoka is that if you eat an animal, it is automatically associated with death of consciousness. Not really death in its total form, but in that expression, because you cannot eat meat without harming the individual where it came from. But a plant can be harvested over and over and over again and never be killed. And its actual purpose is its fulfillment mission is for its part of its body to be utilized by others for their benefit. That is their sole purpose. So when you eat that tomato or you eat that beet or whatever it is, then you are doing that energetic expression a service by cementing that value in its existence, which does not happen when you eat another being. But and then the one last point is it's all consciousness. So no matter what, you're still putting consciousness in your body. It's just, do you want that consciousness associated with things that are harming other individuals or things that are fulfilling other individuals? Somebody else get on the soapbox. I think Willow was next.
Well, that's all beautifully said and a really good description of how everything sort of has a role to play in our reality. And underlying all of that, I think it's important to suggest that belief systems, as said earlier, is if your belief system says that something is beneficial for you, then it will be. So that goes for diet, it goes for lifestyle, it goes for literally anything. And even you can convince yourself that things that are actually very harmful and very out of balance are somewhat good for you because you're believing that it is. And yeah, that's been my experience in the past from time to time. But once you really broaden your focus a little bit and actually listen to the part of you that's whispering, saying, hey, this maybe isn't a very good decision, then you can make some changes and become more balanced again.
Anyone else want to
Anyone else?
open up their mouth about the food they put in it?
I will. So before 2018, I had stopped eating beef, and so I was only eating chicken, and I thought that was good. And then one morning I woke up with a dream that told me, not in words but just in visual, that chicken wasn't good for me at that time. So I stopped that day. And so then I was moving towards eating vegan, but it was a little bit more vegetarian, I would say, is where I landed. Occasionally, once or twice a year, or if I have no other choice, or I'm at a special event and there is a specialty, then I will have some meat at that time. And it's just, I just kind of go with but I rarely have any meats other just than eggs, occasionally fish, but most of my protein is legumes and grains, mixtures of that. So that feels better.
Well, I don't even have I don't do it frequently. Typically, if I eat meat, it's because at the Whole Foods Co-op, one of them that we have in town, there's typically some homeless individual that's standing at the driveway and looking for something. And usually I'll always give them food. There's a deli in there and I usually stop by and grab something. And on occasion, and usually because I know that they more than likely do not eat vegan or vegetarian, I will buy them meat because in their belief system, the protein is going to be helpful. So I'll usually buy them chicken or whatever's there, and then I'll buy some, if they got rice or something like that, I'll put it in a container. And there have been a few times, not a lot, where when I get back out, they're no longer there. And then I just eat it. And it doesn't bother my system. It works just fine. And I understand, that, it's actually my energy that I'm ingesting. It's not somebody else's energy that I'm ingesting because it can't be in my reality, someone else's energy. Um, and, and so, one of the biggest reasons that I choose to do that now, not so much from before, is there's a particular theme, I guess, that I'd like to participate with that aligns itself with that choice. And so it's the, as we all develop, as we all become more attentive to other expressions of existence and other things, and in the association with the beliefs, as Willow was mentioning, individuals can tend to make those choices. So I make that choice in that regard. And at the same time, I don't have a problem with anybody else consuming whatever it is that they consume, because I know it really, it isn't bad or wrong or anything like that. It's just fine. So
I have a thought that I wanted to pose to everyone and see their perspectives on it. The concept of fear versus caution. And this kind of ties into the food choices and any kind of choice you make. Like, is it being made out of, oh, I'm afraid of what this might do to me? Or is this choice being made from like, oh, made like a more conscious a standpoint of more caution based. Like, I don't know, they're quite similar, and I'm trying to understand the difference for myself, because I have certain like germ fears and things like that, but are they fears or are they just precautionary measures that are being taken? And what's really the difference vibrationally between this is something I'm avoiding because of fear, or this is something I'm avoiding because I feel like it's good for me to avoid it?
It's all belief based. It just depends on how you interpret the belief. I mean, because I know that I'm safe. It's my number one affirmation. It's the first affirmation I say. I probably say it 6 times a day or more. Every time I take my dog out, when I'm getting up, and before I go to bed, along with other ones. So I don't have to ever worry about germs. I don't have to worry about a meteor hitting me in the head or getting beat up while I'm on the run or having a dead tree fall on me, unless it's supposed to happen, because I know I'm safe. So it might freak people out that, yes, if I drop something on the floor, yes, the odds are extremely good that I'm still going to eat it if it's not like applesauce or a dip of teriyaki. But other than that, like when I go to my daughter's house in Colorado, her husband is from India, and they have a different culture. And if something touches their feet, then they have to wash their hands immediately if they touch their shoes, because there could be a transfer. So, somebody will drop something on the floor and I'll say, I'll get it. No, Grandpa, you'll eat it. Oh, you're damn right. I'm going to eat it. I'm not wasting that. And even now, because I do that, I'm not saying that I take risks, because to me, they're not risks. But I go out and run with my dog 5 times a day, 2, 3 times. I'm picking up crap from my dog. And when I come back, I don't have any compulsion about throwing it in the proper place and coming back and then grabbing something and eating. Now, that might freak other people out, that there was no washing of the hands in between that. but I know I'm safe, so I don't have to worry. I get probably, I'm saying conservatively, 30 something ticks on me a year. I have woods right behind my house. I'm in there as often as I can, and I don't worry about any of that stuff, you
Well,
know?
I really admire the trust that you have for your body. That is something I've been trying to accumulate within myself my whole life, trying to learn how to trust this vessel and its capacity to heal and repair. And I think that's what my life lessons have actually
I,
shown me, because there's been scenarios in my life where I've had to rebuild my body from a very depleted state. But for some reason, I still don't quite believe it.
that's
So thank
that
you for sharing that
that
story.
sounds like the main thing which you came here to learn is
Yeah.
to throw off that belief, not only for this life, but for other entities in which you were engaged.
Mhm.
So,
And I think a lot of this stems from unfamiliarity with physical reality, because to me, ever since I was a little kid, it's been a weird adventure. I'm like, I can't quite believe that it's real. I always think it's a dream. And even when things do happen, they feel very intense because I just can't quite understand all of this. And this is a physical expression in physical reality. So I have to participate. Anyway, it's a strange balance that I'm trying to
no,
find, but it's better now than it's been.
well,
So,
great. And kudos to you for having improvement and, congratulating yourself on it. But this is like 6 or 7 layers involved in that,
yeah.
because you have to have a really good experience with your body, because you have to pay attention and do what it tells you. And that's one of the reasons why I get up. My body says, "Oh, my bladder's getting kind of full." And I immediately go and take care of it, because I always want my body to tell me when something is going on. And I always want to address it as soon as possible, because that communication, it really helps me. Like, I'll have something and my body says, "This isn't good. I'm getting rid of it." And it'd be like, okay, so it'll be in my body, and I don't care if I'm with a crowd or something like that. Yeah, my body says this has to go, so hey, give me that back. And it'll be like, are you okay? I'm fine. My body said this wasn't good. It took care of it. Give me a glass of water. What were we talking about? That kind of thing, because it's very responsive, because it knows I will listen. And if your body tells you something and you keep ignoring it, you end up with a body that's got one of those kids that never got attention, those adults who never got attention when they were a kid. Dad, 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 dad. And it just keeps coming at you with different stuff all the time. And then pretty soon it starts talking louder, and we all know how that works.
Yeah.
So,
That's a great analogy and a really helpful perspective for me. So thank you for suggesting that into my mind so I can ponder it and try to embody that same perspective.
and one other thing, I know I'm talking way too much. I'm sorry, Chuck. But one other thing that I changed on my diet, which has helped me because I believe that it will help me, was switch to um, a breakfast of a fruit smoothie with at least two types of fruit, and then generally spinach and kale in it, because that's about the only way I'm ever going to eat kale. And now I eat it all the time in my smoothie. And then I also get the majority of my protein now from peanut butter, from organic peanut butter. So that's normally my breakfast, is I will have a peanut butter, sometimes jelly sandwich with my two fruit smoothies made with apple juice and organic ingredients.
A lot of that reinforces the idea of belief systems. I know people can't have a peanut anywhere near. Okay, so peanut butter ain't gonna make it under any circumstance. And so many other things, that are, quote, healthy, and they can't touch that or this or the other. Okay. Uh, I have very sensitive relatives that have been raised in Oregon in an environment in which they were, the grandmother was metaphysical, the mother was metaphysical, and the little children, were raised in a fairly controlled environment from the perspective of what they were exposed, the food, da da da, all of that. But they were born into the world with some serious, serious allergies that were life-threatening from the beginning. And so they had very strict diets. Now, one of them came to visit us about 4 years ago, a little bit towards the tail end of the COVID thing. They have been in California, and the mother wanted to give another experience of that period, different. So they came here, and so very sensitive girl, and she had things that we needed to watch very carefully, because if she ingested any of it, she could go into a shock, and you could say goodbye to her, perhaps. So anyway, but I noticed, interestingly, that she had what I'm going to call some emotional disorders, inability to process certain things that probably had happened in her life that were difficult to process. And being me and being able to see that, I tried in a soft manner to open the subject at one point or the other. And the reaction to that was the person froze, completely froze. To what extent did they freeze? They actually lost their balance and they fell. Just because I had a little inquiry about what I was seeing. Little. And she loved me, and I love her. Okay? So what I got out of that and the period that she remained with us was that you carry deep, not just belief systems, but structures that are creating a lot of how your body reacts to things. That was just a little piece of data. I don't know if I really have enough to, make those extrapolations, you could call. But in more modern times, as I'm looking at these other perspectives about consciousness and this reality, well, here's the information that's coming from a whole bunch of different sources. I'll take two of them. I'd say Rupert Spira, taking it from a purely sensory, metaphysical. Well, I don't call it. He doesn't call himself spiritual, by the way. Okay, a man that believes in non-duality and oneness. All of that kind of stuff. But he got to it from his own inner search. He's not a scientist. He was not trying to derive. And I take somebody else that is in the complete domain of science. Let's say Bernardo Castro. What are they saying? Matter doesn't exist. This is a hologram created entirely out of our belief systems. Subconsciously, perhaps. Okay? And what we have accepted, just like the period that we're talking about children. Believe me, I'm very in tune with children because I have a 16-month-old living with me. And boy, has it awakened all of that. And I observe that every day. Today we went to nature. For the first time, I took him on a hike with a little thing called Bob. Oh, what a wonderful invention that thing is. But anyway, and so I'm constantly observing, how he reacts to things. And I even know when he's seeing something I can't see. I can't see it. I know you're seeing it. Okay. But as I balance that, I realize the most important thing for humans is to become more and more detached from belief systems to the extent that we can. What we do is we use the principle of substitution. We try to disengage from a set of belief system for something that's more benevolent. We try to connect to the higher versions of us, but maybe we have to do it in little increments. Let's not think that we're going to go on, I'm going to become the ultimate whatever in one big swap, because that could be very counterproductive. But my point is that this new vision of this reality and what consciousness really is in the creation of this reality those 9 different streams of energies that Chuck was talking about, okay, that were architects of this reality, and they know exactly what we're talking about. And I don't know for how many years, I never was a gamer, but way back then when, computer games started coming out, I said, I can't help but see that and understand that this that I call reality is something like that, and that I'm actually in some kind of a screen with a program that has been written, well, written by what? Finally I got to the point where I said, I am also the software programmer, but I am doing things, just like when, somebody is sitting in the computer and says, jump, do this, scream, I'm doing that because my subconsciousness is doing that. Okay. Now that's a different perspective from all of this. But what I'm trying to say is all of these experiences that we are having are here so that we increasingly go through the next level of understanding. And increasingly, as we conquer what we call our challenges, we increasingly discover what we really are and what this is all about. Are we ever going to get out of this reality? No, don't even think it completely. Except if you dissolve into the other stuff that you are, I would say. Okay. So we're supposed to operate here and now. And remember that word, multidimensionality? And remember that other word, infinite multidimensionality?
I've heard
Well,
of it.
call it without bounds. Okay. And, the minute you start counting dimensions, you are on a losing game because you're never going to include them all. Don't even think it. Okay.
Yeah.
It's not about that. Okay. So all I have to say is it's all about learning how to connect, love, allow, and love unconditional. It's a very long road because we have so many things that we have to dissolve. And whoever is in that path has all my respect and all the honor, no matter what they're doing, no matter how they eat or they don't eat, or, if they look very strange. Some of them may look very strange to me because my experience didn't include that, But they're in that path, they earn all the stars that I would consider good stars, for lack of a better expression. Anyway, that's just my take on it.
Well, you're certainly embodying your role of the master integrator. You're like an integration specialist and helping people to
God,
realize how to integrate all these
Willow,
aspects
please.
into themselves.
You can't hide from her.
Yeah, I know, Willow. When I was an engineer and I was doing engineering, that was my specialty, integration of things.
We'll see.
I worked with the big,
big.
they had big projects, whatever. And I worked with, at that level, starting with, let's figure out what we need to build. And in order to do that, you had to scan all the possible users and all the people that are going to be affected by it. And you had to ask questions, and you had to distill, you had to integrate their ideas somehow, and then you have to convince somebody that, hey, this is what we need to
Telepathy
build.
is strong in this one.
You're what again?
Telepathy is strong in
It's
this
strong.
one.
It is strong for sure.
And
So
Chuck,
integration is a very big word, and that's what I feel. Honestly, I'm just trying to integrate a little bit more and more. Hopefully every day, But
Chuck, was DeSatu talking about Seth's 9 families of consciousness?
Yes, that's the
Okay.
same thing.
Okay, because he had mentioned, and some people have 12, and
Oh, not in this dimension.
oh yeah, well, I'm just
again,
talking about it's different experiences rephrased as different things, right? But yeah,
again, I don't. Let's not get hung up on numbers.
Yeah.
So
no,
much.
I'm not. I'm
So,
just
what's interesting is that 2 experiences, one along the lines of Ray's and one a little bit more along the lines of what Luis was talking about earlier, is that I don't see doctors ever. I trust my health totally. And, one of the things that Jamie is unaware of yet is I practiced as a chiropractor for about almost 14 years and did very alternative things in that practice. And when I was doing that, and I'm not saying that this necessarily is always the case, but every time I had an individual come into the office that had some sort of allergy, I was always able to identify the emotional issue they had that was associated with why they couldn't consume or smell or whatever it was, that thing. Um, and um, so, but because as Louise was talking, the thing is that, what we probably understand that a lot of people don't is that, and Will might even remember it. We don't know. But when a child is in utero, there's all sorts of stuff they're absorbing emotionally from their surroundings, and especially from their parents and especially from mom because that's the closest association that they have. But everything makes a difference. The place in the world that they're in, the prevailing energies at the time, all that stuff. It's like that developing consciousness is not devoid of connection at that time in any way, shape, or form. And so yeah, I because of the way that exploration was going for people at the time, because this was a while ago that I was doing it, I'd have a lot of people ask me about, well, is this coming from another incarnation of mine? And what I would say is that it's being reinforced by that incarnation of yours. You choose it here, and then you draw from places that will reinforce the choice that you've made here. But it doesn't begin there. And but I'm employed now in an industry that is very heavily into making things that make people well. and the company that I work for is, I think, the largest producer of flu vaccines on the planet, amongst some other things. And I don't get flu vaccines. Never gotten flu vaccine. Well, maybe when I was young, I did. And back when I thought I still needed to help people understand things in a deeper way, if they were interested or not, one of the things that I would do when I was at work, because, we all got those vaccinations for free, so pretty much everybody in the center, which was probably 65 people, would get vaccinated, but me. And every one of them usually would get the flu except me. And then I would point that out to them. I would say, so guys, who's the other one here who hasn't gotten the flu this season? Who's the other one here who doesn't get vaccinated? and at first, when they didn't know me as well, they would be willing to listen to me. And then when they got to know me better, they go, yeah, Chuck, whatever. Go ahead, Will.
This is a really interesting point you're bringing up because my mom made the choice for me when I was little to never have me vaccinated. So in my entire life, I've never had a single vaccine of any kind. And sometimes I think that that might contribute to me being how I am now without having any chemical filters in my system that are kind of suppressing certain frequencies to come through. So just curious of your thoughts on that.
No, belief.
Belief, yeah,
Yep,
you're
belief.
right.
Yes. No.
The answer to everything, beliefs.
Yeah. The thing is that, people will point at plagues in our history, and they'll talk about the advances, quote unquote. And again, this is a valid way of approaching it. I'm not saying it's not a valid way of approaching it, but it's one way of approaching it. One of the valid ways of approaching it. And they'll say, well, there's these plagues, and now we've got these things that prevent them from happening. But they don't understand that those plagues had to do with much more than just something that was released in nature. It had to do with a movement that was happening on the planet at the time that meant something in consciousness at that moment as well. They just don't understand that. Like COVID did for us.
Yeah.
There were many, many things that came out of that particular event on our planet. A lot of movement, a lot of change in individuals that has yet, I'll suggest, to fully develop. So yeah, Um, anyway.
Yeah, and one of the things that came to me when you mentioned in utero is that is such an exciting and plentiful opportunity for beings who do not wish to engage in a human life to experience that physicality. Because even sometimes until right before birth, there's no consciousness other than the body consciousness located inside the womb.
Yeah. Yeah, they don't
So
stick.
no, but anything, no, I use that term loosely, but that wanted to get that experience could come in and hear the heartbeat and hear the other things that are going on in the environment and, feel muscles twitch and that kind of stuff. And, that's what I think of now when they say, "Oh, this baby's really active." And I'm thinking, if I had a chance to come into a body, I'm not just going to sit there and maybe put my thumb in my mouth every once in a while. I'm giving it hell. I'd be like, "Oh, let's see what I can do now." Like, oh yeah, no wonder. But that's just my overactive or underactive imagination. Well, it depends on your view.
And there's all sorts of ways that we can do that. It's like other individuals, I say individuals, other souls, whatever you want to say, they can tag along on our experience.
Mhm.
They can do it for the whole of the life if they want to. They can do it for just a few moments if they want to. There's many ways to experience a reality.
I've
A
made a
dimension.
life of that. I've enjoyed that. I invite those beings that share my experience in before I channel. That's part of my process for the beings of light
Yeah.
because it's just amazing. And like you, Chuck. I mean, I got a COVID shot because they said my work said, if you get this COVID shot, you get the rest of the day off. I'm like, you're gonna give me a vacation day if I'll take this shot. And I'm like, it's not going to help me. It's not going to hurt me, but you're going to give me a day off. I'm taking it. And I don't have any side effects or anything like
Sure.
that. It was like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm off. I'm done. See ya. And, I don't have insurance and I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't need insurance.
Yeah. For me, it
Why would
was
I get insurance?
the first time it showed up, the company was not insistent that anybody that worked there have it. And then they changed their policy, and I went, "Oh, it doesn't make any difference one way or the other. I get to do with it what I want." So I got it, and it was like, yeah, whatever. And it's interesting though is that I think it was, I'm pretty sure it was after I got that. I don't know how long after I got it. I think it was quite a while, but I ended up having an illness that felt like a strong flu, and so because I worked there, I have to get the test. Got the test, and it turned out that the test showed that it was that. But whatever. It doesn't really make any difference.
You
You
know,
know,
the
in
COVID
in
thing.
more traditional ways too, it's like there were times when that more common everyday flu now, and within history used to wipe out huge numbers of individuals. So, it's
But you'd have a hard time explaining that to scientists and say that no, biology and transferring among animals or other species or even humans had nothing at all to do with this emergency that we've created, this pandemic or epidemic. And
well, I always find it interesting that various branches of science and certain individuals within them, because it's not all, they like to keep science very sequestered. Because if you explore quantum physics as a science at all, you'll know that, these things that you're quote unquote injecting into individuals, are just energy. There's,
yeah,
I mean,
Pure,
my
pure energy.
undergraduate is chemistry, and in graduate school, I did a little bit of that as well with other stuff. But, the thing is that no one's ever seen a molecule. No one's ever seen an atom. They've seen traces of something that they've then named, right? Um, so it's yeah, Anyway.
Yep, Neil deGrasse Tyson, right? He stays away from the spiritual aspect. Stephen Hawking's got all over it. And he says, we don't know what any of this shit is or whatever it means, but this is how we can explain it to the best of my knowledge. And people bought into that perspective of it. But he was always saying, and so many science fiction writers, and obviously this is something that I'm passionate about because I get all worked up.
Well, one of Einstein's pals, shall we say, the guys that were around when all that stuff was going on, a statement that he made is that, the things that we're finding, I'm not comfortable with at all because it doesn't match with what we think is true about the world. And he was involved in those experimentations, and it's interesting how things work. Oh my gosh, who's the individual? I'm going to forget his name, but there was a well-known physicist, and his name might pop in back again when Albert and the guys were all
Niels
involved.
Bohr, perhaps?
Was it Bohr? Maybe.
Yeah.
Planck. No, it was Planck.
Oh, Planck, Max Planck. Okay.
He was guest editing American Science, or one of those, when Albert submitted his theory of relativity. And everybody in the time thought that if he wouldn't have been the one to read it, it never would have been included in that journal at the time, because he's the only one that they figured had some wherewithal to be able to understand what Albert was talking about. So those kind of coincidences are very interesting.
Yeah. Isn't that the truth? Oh, I love the parentheses you put on that. I'm not the parentheses, the quotation marks.
Yes. I've had we all have so much of that stuff go on in life, I mean, I've had a little more history to deal with than Willow has in that regard. So I've had more maybe as a result. I don't know, maybe not. You've probably maybe jabbed a lot of that into 22 years. But yeah, so frequently, it's like, it's just kind of fun. So I was looking for an apartment one time. And me and a girl that I was dating at the time, and ran into this place in a brownstone that was just really nice. Wooden floors, fireplace, we really enjoyed it a lot. And I was about to, what was I doing? Well, I was going to apply to a radiology program in chiropractic. And I'd already been briefly in practice. And so the older couple that owned the building were really nice. And I was chatting with the woman. I was telling her about what I was thinking about doing. And she goes, I'm not going to rent you guys the apartment. She goes, because I know they're going to accept you into that program and you're going to be gone in 3 months, And so I said, okay, well, I understand that, And so back then in my town, everybody was looking at apartments. You had to call in advance and make an appointment for even the crappiest apartments that were out there. I mean, every place there were appointments, right? And so every place we went to look at a place, there were people right there before us and right there after us. And so I just wanted to talk about what the atmosphere was like. And so, we're looking at places for a couple of weeks, and really nothing strikes me like the other place. And all of a sudden I get this impulse. I wonder if that one place is in the paper still. Is it still available? And so I look, and it was. And so I called, and this is what the woman tells me. She says, nobody else has come to look at the apartment since you were here, so I guess you can have it. This is in an environment where you can't go any place without a ton of people looking at apartments, right? So for 2 weeks with that apartment, nobody had come to see it. And so I got the apartment. So love how things happen, right?
A great example of how synchronicity works and how it navigates up into a certain direction. And you're right. I mean, I've had my fair share of those experiences as well. And especially in recent times, it seems to be just so normal that I'm not really even surprised by it anymore. Things just unfold so naturally and so easily, usually, that it's just like, I know exactly where to go. And it's very helpful to not have to be analyzing everything all the time and having to make decisions from a more, analytical point of view. It's now just more of a feeling-based point of view.
Not surprised at all.
So today we touch here and there the concept of soul family.
And I
You
want to
guys are all
bring
part
us.
of my soul family.
Yeah, I want to bring it to
Yes,
that moment.
absolutely.
And I remember on a prior, maybe it was the Setu session, but perhaps Christiana had a question. No, it was of Chris that had to do about the group and how she felt that we had past lives together. What's the deal here? So the concept to me is the concept of soul family. And,
So the dude that sits on my shoulder all the time is weighing in on this and saying, absolutely, all of us have a number of incarnations together, all of us. And regardless of whether Jamie thinks it was her young child's invite or not, there were other things that compelled them as well. their knowledge of us already.
that is correct.
And
Nothing-
that's true for all of the individuals who have flowed through our group too, and that was acknowledged several times amongst the various channeling sessions we've had. I mean, we just started this in October.
the
So
Sunday, no, the Sunday started in February or
yeah,
or
about
March.
February.
Almost. Yeah, March.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
In fact, the progression has been so quick in terms
very
of,
fast.
well, in so many ways,
Well, yeah, we started with one channeler every other week, and now, including the ones who don't really participate, we have 21.
Yeah.
So to me, that's amazing. And the number of, and I know it's well over 100 entities which come through are represented in that. And even with Chuck and Serge just doing one with Desatu and Chris. But you have Patrick who does, I don't know, if somebody told me he did 24, I would not be surprised because he is continually doing more. 3 days ago, he's in contact with another one that wants to come through and do something for 20 minutes. And I don't even remember what being it was. It's like somebody who says, yeah, I tried a new cup of coffee with this in it. I tried a cup, and you stop remembering what additives they put in their coffee after a while, unless it was something strange. If they said armadillo, you might remember. But so he says, yeah, I was contacted by this entity, and I'm be like, okay, yeah. And I'm like, that's just freaking amazing. And I don't even remember what the entity was.
Well, it's like, how many different currents do you think are in the ocean? Thousands and thousands and thousands, right? They all have some unique quality to them. And so it's the same thing in consciousness, it's like, and so we like to identify them with names and whatever, but they have a perspective to add, and they'll meld with us, during that time that they do that, just to use a word. But so so it's fun, right?
Brother Francis brought through 10. Mousy brought through at least 10, if not more, on that one. And incidentally, if anybody is interested, I forgot to put this in the messenger group. I did save the audio portion where only Mousy is speaking. So if you wanted to get her particular light language and channeling and her going through all of those different manifestations of entities that she went through on the audio portion and just hear her, then that's available if you need it.
Cool.
Yeah, I couldn't escape the night without making a little request to
And
Chuck.
she will be coming back and channeling her version of the Hybrid Children on our Bridging Worlds Meet the Hybrid Children special on July 27th at our special event starting time of 6 Eastern time on that day. More details forthcoming. It'll be exciting. And I will be bringing in the Hybrid Children, and Patrick will be bringing in Jack to talk about the Hybrid Children and maybe the Hybrid Children as well. And we will have other information and maybe, just maybe, yet another guest.
There
We
could
will
be a
have to wait.
teacher that shows up too.
we're working hard and we're running out of time, and we'll talk about that tomorrow, won't we, Luis?
We will. I just can't escape the night without saying and asking a question of Chuck, another one. And it has to do with what he was experiencing as Ray was channeling, because visibly you were in the flow of those energies. If you want to comment, of course.
Please do.
Yeah, so I mentioned to you guys that most frequently when somebody else channels, I don't stay here and experience it this way. I disassociate a little bit, and I connect more with the source of where that information is coming from. And so there's a visual part that's frequently associated with it, and it's hard to explain. It's like a dim light that shows up in like a shape, and then it brightens up a little bit and it expands, and there's kind of a woo to it and a woo to it, and it like flows through me, and it continues like that. So that is typically the experience that I have, and the shapes can change on occasion. And it's most typically, it's hard to say, 5-sided, 6-sided. It's not super descript, but yeah. So, and it's a feeling state. In fact, usually pretty early into it, I'm not hearing your words any longer, Ray, or anybody else who's channeling. Usually, it's just a feeling state that's going on. And I got a little too deeply into it one time. We did I think it was the first gathering of channelers we had.
The expo,
We had like
yeah.
8 individuals or something like that. And this is the first time that I did it with an intent. And I couldn't relate on this from this vantage point. There was someone that asked a question, and I was so much still there that I could only focus on the first few words and the first feeling of the question, and then they continued and they continued and they continued, and so none of it it didn't mean anything to me, so I couldn't answer the question. Yeah, so it's kind of like, I don't know, it's hard to say. It's like maybe a combination of, if you stand next to an oven, you can feel the heat radiating off the oven. And then if there's a gentle breeze, you can feel the breeze blowing. If you combine the two of those with some sort of a melody that kind of goes, something like that. That's kind of what I experience, and it's filled with information. So I don't know.
Had that before too, so I know what you're talking about. It's very,
Yes.
really that it's sort of a universal experience.
Yeah. I had, I've shared with you guys, but not with Jamie. Jamie, you're familiar with Seth, yes?
I'm actually not that familiar with Seth.
But you understand if I say Seth.
Talking about the Seth teachings from like
Jane Roberts.
80s, right? In the early 80s,
Yeah.
90s.
Yeah.
Yeah, the stuff
That's
I
Seth
put in the
speaks.
chat.
Yeah.
So when I was still in practice, there's a park in Duluth is, if you don't know, it's a lot like San Francisco. It's built on a hill, and there's a road that runs along the crest of it. And they have a big stone tower. They built a park, and they built a big stone tower many years ago. It's like 6 stories, something like that, 7 stories. And I would go there frequently for lunch. And on my trip one time, I had that inner voice of mine say, "Pull over." But 2 weeks before that, that road is cut into the rock that underlies the town. And geologically, it's very old. And so for 2 weeks before this day, I was feeling what I just expressed come from the rocks as I was drive to my work every day, the practice. And then that one day I pulled over because that was the suggestion. And when I got out of the car, it was a nice summer day and I was facing kind of southwest and the wind was blowing in my face gently and it was a really nice day. And so I closed my eyes just in appreciation of the day. And I became aware, everything shifted for me. I became aware of me as the individual that was creating my reality and creating this version of me, creating the trees, the air, the rock, all that stuff. And I could move my awareness around. I could be aware of all of that at once or any one aspect of it, and at any time I wanted to. And then it was probably less than a week later, I was at the Duluth Public Library, the main one, and looking around for metaphysical kinds of books, and there was one that made it so very obvious on the shelf, and so I pulled it off and began to read it, and it was Seth Speaks, and it described my process. And so, one of the things that was nice for me is that I got to experience what the book was talking about before I read the book. And so I never questioned the material that was in the book because it was already my experience. So it was kind of cool. So it was synchronicity that Willow was talking about before, that so much of my exploration has been like that. I've mentioned to these guys that very frequently for me, the way that it's always worked for me is that if I read a concept that'll become important for me in real life, usually within several days, I'll have an experience that shows me experientially what that concept is all about so that I know it from that perspective of it. So that's been a lot of fun. It's been pretty cool.
Yeah, when somebody asked that question about synchronicity, the Pleiadians just wanted to say, we would just like to say, just do it like the Sasani say and just do, and then they'd be done with it. But they're like, well, that's not going to work. We have to fill some more detail in. Because they were thought, because then they got the information or it came in and saddled with, well, everybody's not going to know what you're referring to with that. And they want to make sure they're understood. So
yeah,
I hope they did okay. Well, I don't care what they did on that, to be honest with you, because it happens the way it happens. I was curious though, Chuck, I know sometimes you explain that you get different colors or that type of things from energy too, and heaviness or lightness, different other metrics, I will say, depending on whatever comes to you. Did you notice a difference when the hybrid children came in as opposed to the Pleiadians, since the Pleiadians are aiding that informational transfer?
Yeah, and I'll say this: you're much more familiar, from my perspective, and comfortable with the Pleiadian energy than you are with the hybrid kids' energy right now. You understand it better. You're getting to the place. It's kind of like will and trusting their body to be healthy. You're learning to become more transparent and what's the word I want to use? This isn't it, but it's the best I can do right now. And to make your connection as free of other stuff as possible with them, and it's helping you to shake off the beliefs that are associated with the time periods that you moved through as an individual, and allowing you a freedom in your expression that you're getting more comfortable with.
I'm definitely getting lots of perspectives, and especially the things that I like, those tubes. I mean, that was a rarity that I was not able to get anything that I felt I could relate, where it would be anything that you guys would understand that was remotely reflective of what my experience was. It would be like talking to somebody who's only had a chipped nail, and then they're trying to explain to them the pain of 36 hours of childbirth. And that's the only thing that they have which relates. And you're like, I can't do this. How do you explain that that's the only pain that they've ever had? And now I'm asking them to understand an endurance of 36 hours of child labor. That's not going to
The
be fair.
the impression that came to me when you mentioned that was a symbol to express a type of containment and a method of conveying information that is typically not contained in that way. We have a concept of how things can flow through a tube, and how things are contained within tubes, and how they're directed within tubes. And some of the impressions I got when you were saying that had to do with the symbolism being expressed in that way to convey particular ideas along the lines of the directedness of what was being shared.
Well, cool. And I just realized that when I'm connecting with that group, because in my understanding, there's like 8 or 9, sometimes a dozen-ish, and they're all communicating telepathically at the same time. And all of those thoughts are communicated into one stream, which I get linearly, because sometimes they're disjointed. And I know it's because one child's thought faded and another one picked up. And sometimes it seems like they may have some coherence with each other. But when I do the transcripts, I like to put a little ellipsis in there. So, you can see, well, yeah, there's a break here and I'm not sure what happened, but I can see, it's related on the same subject, but sometimes words might fail one and another one picks up on it because they're a group, literally. They are collective telepathic consciousness in that way. And in some ways, I'm not always getting all of their attention because they're focused elsewhere and they're taking time out to communicate with me in this way. And I don't know if that has an effect because the Pleiadians have been nothing short of marvelous and helpful for me, and have been a boon to my channeling as well. And having me, and I've been recruiting for them in some ways, I guess, and that'll happen more next Sunday too on the group Pleiadian channeling meditation that we're going to have. And I just need a billboard up, don't I, just to keep these plugs going. But anyway,
Some behind you that just, you can push a button and it flashes.
where's the dancing rabbit costume with the sign saying, "Hey, next Sunday, next Sunday."
Right, yeah.
Well, I think that we reached the moment of the night in which we have to start giving thanks
Sounds good.
for all of you. It's not just for the two channelers and the energies that they have brought forth, but
Well, yeah,
every
it's
one of you has been holding this space in a phenomenal way. And so you're contributing to the all that we are and beyond that.
yeah, it's quite cool.
And
Thank
all
you.
those in virtual land that co-created, of course, you mean them as well.
Of course,
Calling them out.
Yeah.
And thank you all.
every energy that will ever in any way touch what we have done here today, is part of this right now.
It's always a blast. Thank you all.
So it'd be. Thank you, Chuck. Thanks a lot.
Oh
Thank you
yeah,
for your
guys.
continued support. Ray, thank you for your continued support and more.
My pleasure.
I'll see you tomorrow. Well, we'll
Yep.
on Zoom, of
We'll
course.
we'll be in touch.
Yeah, we'll be.
My people will touch base with your people.
Yeah. It was a pleasure to meet Jamie.
And
Willow,
Christina Anna, thank you very much for getting up
Heidi?
at 2 o'clock in the morning again for us. And Jamie,
I don't
thank you
know.
so much
She
for
says
doing
that she works in the morning, but I'm
And
not sure how this works
Luis,
for
before
her.
you close it out, can we get some closing words from Amy, since I'm good at putting people on the spot, even though they don't expect it on their first time when they show up?
If she wants to, she can
Of
step
course,
forward.
it's always
Absolutely.
up to the
Absolutely.
person, but
What would you like to know?
I'm just an open, curious sort, and and part of me wants to reinforce that you've enjoyed your visit here and our energy, because I like hearing it.
Oh yeah, I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but
That's right. That's right. That's Ray for you.
I'm trying to be authentic on my answer here, but it's yeah, exactly. Thank you, Chuck.
No, I would say that I'm glad that I was able to have the time to be here during the session and to be able to see channelers in the flow of their talents. It's something I very much admire. I do I'm a dowser, so I do pendulum dowsing and do communication through that tool, which is lovely, but it's a lot slower in terms of gathering information compared to the flow of information that comes through the two of you as a verbal channel. So I really admire that. And who knows, perhaps someday that will develop for me. But at the moment, this is a tool that I've been using for about 20 years now. And in my energy practitioner role, that's how I do it. So I'm grateful for that, but I am also very appreciative and as I said, admiring of the two of you with these abilities. So thank you for sharing today.
Well, thank you, and for sharing your gift as well. I mean, that's it's there are so many gifts that are out there. And I was wondering what it was like for you to interact with your daughter, or with Willow. I will just leave it at that. And in this type of interaction.
Oh, it was great. I mean, Willow is very articulate, as you know, and she's very curious, and she's great at like almost with like interviewing someone with questions that go to deeper levels and perspectives that maybe the person hasn't yet considered. Yeah. She's really, really good at that. Yeah. and I appreciate those skills that she has developed herself. And it's even more remarkable, I guess, from my perspective, because when she was younger, especially in her toddler years, she barely spoke. She pretty much had selective mutism for a few years, especially in public settings. She's more comfortable at home speaking. But so now, to me, to be able to witness her interacting with the group and being having her voice come through in a confident and articulate way, in a very inspired way, and very wise way, is really just thrilling for me. It's a great celebration for me to witness that and to feel and witness her excitement about being a part of this group. So I have a lot of gratitude for all of you for inviting her in and supporting her and loving her in the way you do. So thank you for all of you. Thank you. Well, very appreciated.
That's a theme that I know that these guys set out with when they first started the group, was for the group to be supportive of everybody's growth and exploration, regardless of how they were doing it. And so it's what I appreciated for the group. It's part of what kept me coming back, was I felt that was genuine, with individuals. And it wasn't about saying, oh, you didn't do that quite right, or this one does it better, or any of that stuff. It was all just about, supporting people in their own process. So yeah, so I'm pretty sure that that Willow knew that beforehand and then somehow found us.
Someday
Yeah,
he'll have to tell us a story of how he got attracted to that hybrid event. And what was his thoughts were when he sent me that email that had a couple of questions
Well,
before the event. Before the event.
well, I guess
exactly.
I could briefly share that. It wasn't much of a story. It was more of just synchronicity at play, stumbling across the post in the Our Hybrid Children Facebook group that I was in, which I found from the Bashar group. And then I saw the post about the event, and I felt this very strong pull to go be a part of it. And I had questions already flowing through my mind about what I would like if I had the opportunity to ask the hybrid children questions. I had already had these in my mind for several months, so that was easy, to just send those in. And then it just all unfolded from there. And now it feels like I've known everyone here for eternity. It's like, oh, these are just my friends that I just became reacquainted with. So
At
it's
least
been
since the beginning of the universe, you have known us.
And you
This
had no
universe.
idea that you added my quote as on your phone until
yes,
after
yeah,
that event. And
that was really
I get the impression that we will never hear a question from you unless you have mulled it over and had at least 7 iterations before you actually get to one you're comfortable with voicing. Does that sound right?
well. I don't know. I mean,
That's okay.
there's so many
The
questions all
story
the
is
time.
ongoing, Ray, so
I think they're
don't
much more
write it all out
spontaneous
yet, okay?
now.
Anyway,
And thank you
we've
all for
all
sticking around. And Jamie, thank you very much for coming and for sharing that additional information. Appreciate it.
thank you so much,
Yep.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Christiana, Heidi, as always,
Heidi,
really
Yep.
great to have you guys
Ray.
with us.
Always.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Hello.
much also.
Good
Good
night, all.
night, everyone.
Good night and good morning for Christiana.
You.
Have a good time at work tomorrow.